He was like a god to me. When you talk of loyalty, I gave him all. I loved him so much. My relatives, my siblings, my father, my mother, everybody meant nothing to me.
I lived there as one of the closest disciples, a loyalist to the core.
I was very close to him. I was just like the number 2 in the Synagogue Church of All Nations. There are certain things he told me personally that I know many of the disciples never knew. He knows exactly what he wanted to achieve.
Welcome back to Botonline TV. Just like I said in the previous video regarding TB Joshua and the documentary released by BBC Africa and all the everything that I've been unfolding, I said it clearly that this whole thing is just a fight, not a fight against TB Joshua, but against the church, or should I say his wife, Evelyn. Let me apologize for saying, calling her Helen. I actually mistake Evelyn for Helen. Her name is actually Evelyn TB Joshua, not her name. The real reason behind the cooked, I call it cooked, BBC Africa report on TB Joshua. Cooked in the sense that these people were people who lost out in the fight over the control of the church. So they decided to fight all out, not TB Joshua, but to crumble the church and fight. Since they cannot have control over the church, let it go down in place. Of course, they were part of the people who built that church. And so you should expect something like that.
He had special interest in the Oyibo, the whites.
I'm not surprised that God is using a black man. Never ever have I seen the power of God manifest like it's here.
The greatest thing that pumped Synagogue Church was when the foreigners started coming. This was strategic, and it was planned.
I just got a confession to make that I want the whole world to know. In the past, I've always hated blacks. I really hated them. When I got back over here, I saw the love that we received from black people.
He used the white people to market his brand. Having white man or white woman around is like you have achieved. He just said, look at these people. They don't know where they are.
I know that some of us we have zeroed our mind towards church. For me, truly, church has committed a lot of atrocities in Nigeria. Chief among them is trying to disconnect people from their culture and tradition and from their people. Yes, church has committed a lot of atrocities, but then it doesn't mean that we should now stand when we see wrong thing, we will refuse, we will not say this is right or this is wrong. We all have that obligation of duty, of obligation to the society and mankind. This is not me supporting him, but I want to state some facts as I have been following this story since he passed. So if you are conversant with Synagogue Church of All Nations, you will know that TB Joshua has wise men and disciples. You know, I stated this in my previous video, and one thing worth stating is that 85% of these wise men and disciples are foreigners, white men from other foreign countries. Before the prophet passed, these wise men and disciples were very powerful. Most Sundays, they handle deliverance and prayers and ministrations. Also, bear in mind that TB Joshua had a wife, you know, who is Evelyn. She is also a prophet. She's also a prophetess. She was a prophetess before TB Joshua married her. While her husband was still alive, she comes out once in a while to preach and join in ministering to the church members. At some point, you know, at a particular stage, she had a baby and decided to face the home front squarely. So after that, she had the baby. She stopped ministering in church or conducting healings and all those stuff. But before she had her baby, she was conducting all this. She was conducting deliverance. She was ministering. She was preaching in the church. TB Joshua had an overwhelming membership and couldn't handle the prayer lines alone. So he ordained some of these wise men and the disciples. Now, if you have ever passed through, I've not been to the church, like say you are going to church or trying to find out what's going on in the church, but I have passed through that road because the church is on the side of the road. So I passed through that place on uncountable times while service was going on. It was like the entire Lagos was there. Mind you that synagogue was actually a tourism, was actually the main point of religious tourism in Nigeria. That was synagogue was the vocal point of religious tourism in Nigeria. Many of these wise men started acting like him. Some became very powerful. Some left to start their own churches. That is, people like wise man Daniel and wise man John Shi left the church while TB Joshua was alive and they started their own churches. But he still had lots of wise men and disciples. Many of them are not Nigerians. You know, like I said earlier, many of them are foreigners. And so
Somebody was so tired, he slept, opened his mouth. TB Joshua led 4 boys. They pee inside his mouth.
We weren't allowed to wear watches, so our time was controlled. We had to go by God's time, so I didn't know what day, month, year it was.
The time goes by so quickly because every day is so similar to the last. You wake up and it's like, oh, it's 2 years later, oh, it's 3 years later.
Before you know it, your brain doesn't think like it used to think.
His major thing is struggling to control the mind of the people. Indoctrination. Synagogue church is a complicated system. Will clear everything in your head. Will make you believe that all the knowledge you had before was rubbish. You don't need it to live. All what you needed to live is to be like TB Joshua.
now this is where the story gets interesting. Allegedly, when TB Joshua died, these wise men and disciples took over the church. They took full control and full charge of the church and sidelined Evelyn, who is TB Joshua's wife. They said that the prophet intended that they take over when he's no longer around. Remember, I stated that she was, or she is still a prophetess. She was even a prophetess while before TB Joshua married her, and she has the power of healing and deliverance. She has the gift, of healing and deliverance. This rancor went full blown. These disciples and wise men fought Evelyn so much they didn't want her to even appear in the church. They oppressed her so much that one day Evelyn woke up from her slumber.
Each one that goes home tries to contact his brothers, contact his friend US, contact those in the UK.
What do you have to say? I never experienced anything like that before, but I will bring all of this back to my country. I will tell people.
Things started changing fast, started moving on a fast lane. He knew there would be explosion. You see long queues, hundreds of people. Visitors are coming, whites are coming. It's something huge. Those who came from UK for the first time, he paid their ticket. Those who came from America, he paid. Every part of the world, he was paying.
For TB Joshua, it was a game and a trap that he sets for the white people.
So he called me, Sagomo, I need to make these white people my disciple.
When I first got to Lagos Airport, we told them that we were going to the Synagogue Church of All Nations. Oh, go through. It was like a free pass entry to anything. They're just like, oh, go through. Of course. Oh, yeah, you're here. Yes, off you go.
Right from the moment that I landed, I just got super emotional. I'd made a pact with God. I want to know the God of the Gospels. I want to see those miracles. And if I can't see them and they're not real. I'm out of here.
The whites, they didn't come to become disciples. It's when they got to the synagogue church, that's when the manipulation starts. Some intelligent disciples are being sent to stalk on the whites. It's not everybody that we approach. We look at you, when we see the way you fall into what is happening in the synagogue church, we'll come after you.
They don't know we are picking them. But myself and TB Joshua, we know what we were doing. He loves young ones, right? He loves young ones, teenagers.
We don't go for the old people. The young ones, they are very vulnerable. And they are the easy people to manipulate, especially unmarried people. Especially unmarried young people.
I was 17 years old. I got my A-level results while I was in Nigeria, but I couldn't care less about them. I wanted to be like Jesus. I wanted to be like TB Joshua.
I wish I could have that connection with God. I wanted to be like him.
He said, tell them that they should be missionary for the synagogue. You stay here 3 months, you become like TB Joshua.
Let me tell you, he's going to open branches in UK, in America, and everywhere. He's not going to send us to go there. You are the person that you go there. Make them begin to crave to be disciples. Begin to surrender their lives to Joshua.
When Rachel came, Rachel was behaving like a boy, walking like a boy. He said, that girl, why don't you ask her to stay here? And she was happy.
Bissula recruited me. My bags were pulled out of the truck. My friend was put on the plane. My parents collected her at Heathrow. She was basically crying like, Ray's not coming back. She's like stayed there.
A Nigerian sister came to me and said, TB Joshua wants to meet you. There was an urgency there. No, you have to come now. You have to come now. And when I entered, the Nigerian sister kind of pushed me to kneel down. And immediately TB Joshua said, God's told me you're going to stay. You're meant to be here. You're going to stay with me forever. We were living on site in the church. When you live at the compound, you don't leave the compound. There's armed men at the gate with guns. There's a wall. There's barbed fencing. The windows are blacked out. The stairs were concrete. The walls were concrete. It felt like a labyrinth. You're told never to leave. You could get killed. You could get attacked. The outside of the compound is terrifying.
The disciples were a group of about 100 at a time, from Nigeria, from the UK, from America, and usually quite young people. When I had this opportunity, I was like, this is what I've been looking for. This is a prophet who has been called by God. God speaks to him directly. He'll be able to guide me in how I can live my life.
There were a male dormitory and a female dormitory.
There was a culture of like nakedness in the room. It was good to be body positive and not have my clothes on.
Just being completely naked in the female dorm room, my mind instantly went to Adam and Eve. I immediately thought, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
I got taken by 2 women and they stripped me naked. And they pushed me in a shower and turned the water on. And I remember saying something along the lines of, I can do it. And they were like, no, we're your sisters now. We're here to do this for you.
I didn't really know anyone's last name, really their age. I was Sister Kara.
I was Sister Annika. That was immediately encouraged to see each other as family.
You can be tempted by your friends, father, mother.
They had a grand plan.
Sisters.
Not all disciples
the kind
knew
of
what
friend you
was
are
happening.
having, they are the one leading you
It was a secret.
to do evil.
We tried to persuade them to willingly separate from their people, to willingly stop that constant communication with their homes.
You couldn't contact anyone outside. I didn't have my own cell phone. We didn't have really access to our own personal email. We didn't have our passports. They held them for us.
Say my past is over. Your past is over now.
Every relationship you have in this world, you have to cut them off. He makes sure you do that. You have no other family. Your family is TB Joshua.
Jesus used to say to his disciples, leave your father and mother and join me, that's what we had all done. We had left our families.
I suggest to any mums and dads out there who've got kids like mine, bring them to the Synagogue Church of All Nations and let the Lord move in them.
When I first arrived, it was only a couple of days that I started hearing disciples calling him Daddy.
We all called him Daddy. Everybody called him Daddy.
He tried to like look after us, and we would all call him Daddy. I thought it was a bit odd, but I brushed it aside. I dismissed it. I can't really look back and say that my childhood was really happy. And he seemed to be really caring towards me and different, like a really warm and friendly guy.
He had like this office which had a cupboard in it, but I had a whole bunch of like imported sweets. And he kind of used these as like little treats for people, almost like we were kids.
He'd always sit on a swivel chair, and sometimes he'd push off the wall and go, wee! And everyone would go, oh, he's so silly. We'd revel in that. Oh, silly Daddy.
It's like you're in this kind of perpetual childhood state, because he also treats you like a child, and he calls you a child.
There was this kind of like regression that took place. Just like giggle like a kid and stuff. It was so strange.
I want to be just like Prophet Joshua.
Oh, you say you want to be just like Prophet Joshua. Glory be to Jesus. Hallelujah.
I was 17, but I felt like a 12-year-old, like I was very young in terms of understanding of the world. I remember just feeling like I feel at home. Like I felt these kind of warm sensations.
It's just manipulation, just trying to manipulate them. And that's exactly the way Joshua does it. Brainwash them with good words, with love.
Like I stated earlier, most of these disciples, about 85% of them are non-Nigerians. So what she did was to use the government, that used the immigration to have these people deported from Nigeria. So all the foreigners who were acting up in the church were all deported, and that's all the foreigners who wanted to take over from TB, who have already taken over. They were all deported, and she dealt with the foreigners and some of the Nigerians that joined the foreign wise men and disciples. He dealt with all of them and have them kicked out of the church. So with that, she took full charge and control of the church. She is currently the lead pastor of synagogue. She has fully taken over the church. Guess what? The church is still doing well, unlike what these people intended before. Though not like when TB Joshua was alive, but the church still commands a large followership. Every has a special gift of healing. Her church services are packed out, just like when the husband was still alive. So that is just the crux of the matter. Like I said earlier, I'm not a fan of TB Joshua. Will never be and can never be. I'm not a fan of Evelyn. Will never be, can never be. In fact, I believe she committed atrocities against TB Joshua, against the land. When TB Joshua died, she refused that his remains be buried in Ondo State, where he hailed from. The remains of TB Joshua was buried in Lagos, which is I consider wickedness, because the man can never rest in peace. It's un-African to have a man buried outside his homeland. Even when the traditional rulers, the people of Ondo State, demanded that their son be buried in their land, she refused. In fact, she fought them to stand safe. So I can never support such a person. But then we must state the obvious, the facts, the truth, and say it no matter where we stand on issues. Whether I like you or not, I cannot change my stand on issues. Thank you for watching Bottom Line TV, and we'll keep you updated as things keep on unfolding. Thank you.